where do we go wrong when we're trying to persuade someone? What's some of the things that traditionally happens in those moments?
Well, firstly, a lot goes wrong because we're actually not very good at this. Hey, so the thing
Mm,
that stunned me when I started to really delve into the research around this whole topic is that the headline figure is we spend 40% of our time trying to sway the decisions and thinking of other people around us. Like we actually
mm,
spend a lot of time trying to change people's minds in our roles and in life outside of work. But there was a study done at Cornell a few years ago which found that we're only successful in changing people's minds about 3 to 5% of the time that we set out to do it. Like, so
what?
our strike I know
Really?
for us, our strike rate is not great. And even like often we think we've changed someone's mind because we walk away from the conversation saying, I dropped a truth bomb. They've got no option but to see the light now. Surely they've come to see my point of view. And maybe they politely agreed, but there's a good chance their mind hasn't changed at all. The moment the conversation ends or you turn your back, they go back to what they were thinking and doing before the conversation happened. So you so often
Mm,
see that happen in organizations too. The bosses basically mandated a change and people all like politely nod their head and go along with it, but no one's actually changed their thinking. And the moment you stop incentivizing the change or threats of punishment are removed, everyone just goes
mm,
back to what they were doing in the first instance. So we're not very good at is the first thing, and one of the key themes I wanted to look at in the first part of this book is why is that? Because it's not that we're
mm,
just especially bad salespeople for our
mm,
ideas, or that we've necessarily just lost this skill. It's always been hard to change people's minds. It is harder now than ever, and there are some reasons why that's the case. But the big thing that we find difficult as humans is we've been conditioned for probably the last 400 years or so to assume that humans are basically rational and reasonable. And this
mm,
was one of the legacy mindsets of the Enlightenment. And the guy that I often blame for this is a guy named Francis Bacon. So, Francis Bacon, if you haven't sort of heard of him, he was one of the founding fathers of the Enlightenment. He was England's former Attorney General. He coined the phrase "knowledge is power." That was his quote. It's like
mm,
that's a pretty cool quote. Make up a
mm.
quote in your life. That's a good one, right? So,
That's
but
a good one.
his big idea was that humans are fundamentally reasonable and rational. And if you just give people enough evidence, logical arguments, they will come to their senses. They'll see the light, they'll see reason, and they'll change their minds. And
Mm,
that is informed scientific method. That is informed the way we
mm,
educate. That's informed the way governments try and persuade us. It's the
mm,
way our education system functions. And yet it's not true. Like the more
mm,
evidence you give someone who's stubborn, the more logic you pile on, the more they dig their heels in, the more their minds close rather than open. It's a thing called reactance in the world of behavioral psychology. So, looking at how do you get around that, and what are the things that go into that instinctive response to dig our heels in and be stubborn? Where does that come from, and how do you get around it? That's really the focus of the book.